Taylor to You is a podcast where your host Taylor Doherty talks with individuals who fascinate her as she's inspired by the greatest gift us humans have to offer, our story. Each guest story is unique and tailored in its own way, and that's exactly what Taylor loves about them. I was for 3 days a firefighter in my mind.
He's added to your resume. You work for Chicago PD. No, but it's so funny too because imagine though if you did tell that person, oh, actually, no, I'm not a firefighter.
Like, my one buddy started to, and I go, dude, stop that, right? We are firefighters. Because I'm not going to listen to this.
Own your role.
Because I've told people what extra life is really like, and because I'm like, well, I'm working on the show on fire. And their eyes light up, and then when you tell them, they're like, oh.
Hello, it is your host, Taylor Doherty. So my next guest is someone I have known for my entire life. I know him as the Kid, KJ, Uncle Kev. However, you might know him as the voice you hear in my intro, or have spotted him on the TV shows Chicago PD, Chicago Fire, Chicago Med, well, truly anything filmed in Chicago, Shameless, Empire, Fargo, well, as an extra. And we will dive into the glamorous extra life. Kevin Doherty is one of my favorite people, not because I have to say that because I'm related to him, but honestly, I admire his work ethic, and it was just so interesting to learn how he came about voice acting and just his journey within that, and then his extra roles on Chicago-based TV shows. And now he has a passion for teaching voice acting. He is one of the funniest people I know, and this was so fun for me to learn more about someone I love so much. Please enjoy Kevin Doherty, the Kid, KJ. All right, here he is.
I've heard myself, back in the day before Uber and cabs, and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's me, and they'll be like, get out of here, and they'll turn it up. I'll be like, it's me.
Turn around, drop me off on the corner.
Yeah,
I'm still
right.
going to where I need to go, but that is me.
It's super cool. It's rewarding. The most gratifying part of it all is that the client was happy enough with the finished piece that they air it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because they're not going to air something they don't like, right?
That's something we talked about too, where sometimes with your extra roles or certain things like that, people get cut out.
Yeah.
People, they may not release certain things that you create, and that can be different trials and tribulations. But when they do, you must feel really exhilarated.
You have to put in the same effort. And I think that sort of lends to speak about who the person is behind the mic or behind the camera, how they're raised, how they approach the business, how they approach their creative outlets, their tool, their gift. So yeah, that's all plays into it.
And it all goes back to work ethic and how you've mentioned how you just have to, it doesn't happen overnight.
I'm still learning. I still go to workshops. I still, you know what I mean?
You're training people.
It's not like you just sit around with it and you're like, yeah, I can do this. It would get boring.
Well, it's good to know for me starting this because I've talked to you about equipment and audio and those things, big investments, and it's something that you can get discouraged by when you can't figure something out right away.
All right.
But you have to just remember why you did it in the beginning, why you keep circling back to this project.
And are you getting enjoyment out of it? When I first sort of started discovering it, I was like, man, A, I think I can be good at this, and B, this is fun. You never want to be trapped or pigeonholed. There's a lot of people in life that are, and it's unfortunate. So I'm very fortunate that I followed sort of what I want to do, and we'll talk more about. There's been, good times, bad times, pitfalls,
that comes
but
with everything
that comes with everything, right? So
life isn't easy.
It ain't easy, right? Yeah.
School wasn't necessarily, you've told me, wasn't for you.
Yeah, kind of like you touched on, I was sort of, I don't want to say burnt out, but I just sort of didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I was like, you're taking these gen ed courses, and I'm just like, I don't want to be in a classroom. So I, for lack of a better term, I was kind of lost. I was like, I don't know. Then I found Columbia College, and I was excited about. I thought I wanted to be a radio DJ, like you and I are talking.
Howard Stern.
Like Howard Stern, man.
God, he's just the best.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think. I was really listening to a lot of morning radio.
Which that
randomly.
Was what it was.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but at the time, radio's still a thing, but now it's kind of veering more into different types of,
it's
podcasts.
Satellite, because it's the main radio now is strictly music, whereas before it was I would listen to talk show radio. People.
And that was your entertainment in the morning, going to work.
Exactly.
Now people have the easy accessible on their phone. They listen to any music, any podcast, any an audible book.
Exactly.
They have the access is in their fingertips.
So radio DJs are sort of obsolete. I don't want to use that term, but unless you're a big time personality, the average radio disc jockey is random. You know what I mean?
And I love when you say disc jockey, because I remember
Disc jockey, yeah.
I took radio in high school and I had a radio show.
Yeah.
And I remember that was the term. It was DJ.
Yeah.
And I just never fully, I kind of forgot about that. And then when you brought that up to me the other day, I remembered, oh wow, it is DJ. It's not the turntable you picture at the club down the street in River North.
I would
you
not
know?
be suited for that. I would not fit in there. I've tried it too.
We're in the club dancing. We're not doing the turntable.
But one thing I did like at Columbia was when I was taking the classes in their broadcasting program. It was taught by all professionals, working professionals. So like Alan Stagg was a well-known guy from the Loop. He was one of my teachers.
And he was a voice actor?
No. This is for the actual radio. Like when you'd learn how to basically edit your own music spots and like stuff like that. Like you do a mini show for them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I did learn how to do that, which was cool. But then I took an elective course within the radio program by a voice actor. You know, it would be like me teaching a course at Columbia. You know what I mean? A guy that was working in the industry. And
someone you respect and kind of see, okay, they're doing it too. This is a real thing.
I just got an eye. It's funny I use the term eye because you listen to voiceovers, but
Yeah.
like on the process. You know, I didn't know what a voiceover was. Most people don't.
But it's wild because we're exposed
You
to
hear it every day.
more
You hear it every day, right?
Exposed to it more than we even know.
You're right.
But we tune it out.
And back then I loved commercials, and I'm like, oh, that's what that is.
Do you listen to commercials today? Or
I always
do you
listen
fast
to
forward?
commercials.
Okay,
No,
so
I
it's still
always
your
listen.
thing.
When you become a voice actor, it's really imperative to listen to commercials because you hear what the trends are, right?
And they're always changing.
And I also hear the jobs I didn't get. Because I'll recognize the copy. I'll be like, obviously I didn't get that job,
Yes.
right? But
oh, that's hilarious.
you might hear
I love how open you are about it.
a different take on it. You know what I mean? Because I remember what my audition was, and I'm like, why didn't I think of that? You know what I mean?
It's almost a way of doing homework
Right.
on what you could do in the next audition.
And that's exactly what I was taught. And that's what that first guy said in the program. He goes, the first thing I want you to do is don't tune out on commercials. I want you to start listening to commercials, like on TV and stuff. So he pulled me aside after that semester and was like, listen, I don't normally do this. I really think you can probably, you could break into this industry.
Did he say that you had a keen voice?
He's just like, I see that you're enthused about it. And he goes, your voice stands out. Now, this was back when a lot of the commercial work was like heavy Sunday, like what they call big announcer reads.
And it was very personality-based, like on-air personalities?
Yeah, kind of those people were like, it was always like a promo style read, like where you're talking at someone rather than speaking to someone, okay? That's where the industry was.
Well, to pull up an example.
Yeah, no.
Before my time a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'll give you an example. Like, it would be like, let's just say Budweiser was running a spot. Budweiser, king of beers. It would be like, Budweiser, the king of beers. Like, that would be the commercial.
Yes, okay.
Right? Now it sounds real hokey.
Now it's more conversations in the
They want you to connect
commercial.
with the person rather than just throw something at them, right? The guy that I trained with after Columbia College, his name was Kurt Johnson Sr., he always told me during our sessions, he's like, you want to tell, don't sell. Something easy to remember. So when you're doing a commercial read, he goes, I don't want you to sell it to me. I want you to tell me about it, right?
Make them more intrigued and interested and want to learn more.
Make them think that if you're into this, why wouldn't they be into it, right? Like, that's sort of the mentality behind it.
And was this person someone you really took advice from?
I researched. So when I wanted to actually start studying with a voice actor to get a demo produced, which you still need to this day, you need to have a commercial demo. I mean, that's your calling. That's your business card in this industry.
Your first one was back in 2006. Is that crazy?
2006, yeah. So I trained for, we'll call it probably 20 hours spread out over maybe a year because I had left Columbia College, so I had left school. And I had worked at the Board of Trade, and then I was working in a sales job.
Which all the Dohertys, I mean, that's just...
Yeah, that's in our blood. That's in our blood.
You're a salesman.
I enjoyed it, but it got to a point to me where I saw sort of the writing on the wall. Where I was working like 60, 70-hour weeks between client entertainment, my job, and I just was getting burned out. So the light bulb went in my head. I go, listen, I want to work for myself. I got to get back into this voice acting thing. And I really want to try it. It was sort of the first thing that I really followed through on, which was important to me. Because I'm like, you know what? I have a passion for this and I want to do it. So I started training with Kurt Johnson Sr. who was a producer, a voice actor. He had a studio. I mean, he did everything. I mean, he used to record sessions for other voice actors.
And during this time, was this when you still were working full time?
Right. So I would go there.
The grind was real.
I would go there
I'm
at like
doing it now.
Exactly. I would go there at like 8 o'clock at night. Like he would work all day, and he's like, and he didn't teach many people. I kind of contacted him, and he's like, I don't know if I want to do this. And I was like, listen, you know, I've heard your work, and so I kind of impressed him. I think that I sought him out. And he actually sat down the first time. He's like, are you serious about this? Because he took it very seriously. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, all right, because I'm not going to waste my time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it kind of like lit a fire in my butt and scared me a little bit at the same time. I was like, man, this guy's like...
And this is happening.
Yeah. So he's like, all right,
scary.
it's an hour and a half every time you come here. And I was fortunate I was working because I had the money to pay for those. I mean, it was like $150 per session. So I probably...
He wasn't letting you go scot-free.
No, I mean, I probably paid like $1,400 for like just the lessons.
Wow. I mean, that's still such an investment, though.
Yeah.
Even though you are getting paid, you're still... And what age were you now? Because you did sales and board trade for about 8 years, 7 or 8 years.
Combined. I was probably 25 around that age, something like that.
So still young, still at a time in your life where you can find a new passion in your life.
Right, exactly.
I mean, you can find a new passion when you're 80 years old.
Exactly.
There's never a time.
But I was really ready to do it. You know what I mean? I mean, I had let my bosses know, who were my buddies. They're like, all right, man, well, whenever you're ready to leave, let us know.
So they were supportive.
Yeah, but they were also, again, like, they're like voiceovers. Like, it was foreign. You know what I mean? I tried to explain it to them. They're like, okay. You know what I mean?
Right. Were those conversations hard to explain it?
Yeah. And they also know, well, first of all, they were excited for me. But any foreign concept is hard for people to digest if they don't know enough about it. And plus, you're going out on your own, right? So... like they started a business. They're like, listen, I know you're going on your own. When you're on your own, it's very, very difficult. We just want to make sure you're aware of that. And I'm like, yeah. So I was saving money. I was putting money into my 401k, which thank God they had for us. So I got the training done, and then you pick spots. Now, this is back in the day where I had to go through magazine ads and rip out magazine ads that had copy on them to then bring in and record as commercials.
Oh, wow. So
That's
that
how
was
you would-
your content.
Right, exactly. That was the content, because you couldn't use old commercials that had already aired for copyright reasons. So
I mean,
you had to-
copyright is, I mean, it's...
Right.
There's new laws every day.
So he's basically said to me, he goes, I want you to pick out 7 or 8 ads, bring them in, you know, type them up, obviously.
Create a script.
I didn't, yeah, right, scripts.
You woke up with
Yeah.
random pieces of paper magazines.
He would have slapped me in the face.
This one's from People. It's
Yeah.
like Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt on the rocks.
And then, exactly. And then, so I brought him in, typed up, and right away he flipped through all of them, and he's like, no, you're not good for this, you're not good for that. And he picked about 6 spots out of the 8 that he felt I was good for. And then I think a couple were like cigarette ads. He's like, I don't even think like we can do this or something. You know what I mean?
And what type of content
So
did he think was good for you, and how did he decide that?
So this gets into the voice actor's business card, which is a commercial demo reel. They want to see range. And when I say they, the talent agencies, the ad agency people, they want to see that you can do multiple spots. Meaning, back then it was a car commercial, some sort of a fast food spot, some sort of a liquor spot, some sort of a like a
Can you
home,
hear me now?
Yeah,
The Verizon guy?
yeah, exactly. Some sort of a potential phone spot, or like a home goods spot. So they want to hear you do different deliveries
that can
And-
attract different audiences.
Correct. Like, can you be the straight-laced guy? Can you be the excited guy? Can you be the sexy guy? Can you be
Dos
the
Equis.
fun guy? Exactly, right?
Most interesting man in the world.
But the thing is it's just snippets of those commercials. So you'll record a full spot, like a 30-second spot, but then he'll cut that down because they're going to only listen to that. The whole reel should only be about 60 seconds, 1 minute,
Isn't that? It's almost like an elevator pitch.
because they're tuning out very quickly. You know what I mean? I mean, if they're really engaged in your reel, they might listen to half of it. They'll never listen to the full. Rarely, very rarely.
That's so interesting.
If they're not into it because they get stuff submitted to them all the time, you're done in 5 seconds. You know what I mean? They're moving on.
So wild. So when you create those spots, do you feel in the beginning you have to really pull them in?
You know, the strange thing about it, I remember recording my demo. I did it over 2 days, and they all felt great. I mean, I just felt really good about them. And I was in very good hands of him as an engineer, recording engineer, because a lot of people try and record a demo themselves, edit it themselves. And I mean, that's one thing that you're doing right with these podcasts. You have equipment, you've researched it. I had a professionally produced demo reel. You want to present yourself as a professional before you're a professional.
Definitely.
They expect you. If a talent agent signs you, they expect you to go into a session.
You got to fake it till you make it.
Right.
In a way.
They expect you to go into a session the next day like you've been doing this your whole life. Right?
Yes.
And the people that are producing the spot expect that as well.
And were you confident at that point, or were you in a sense of, like I just said, fake it till you make it? Were you just trying to convince others, convince yourself, or were you in that point thinking, I'm a voice actor?
I wanted to follow through with the process, meaning I wanted to get to the point where I said I had this demo produced, I did my studying, I've submitted to talent agencies, and then whatever happened after that, I was ready for, right? So let's sort of talk about that process. So I recorded the demo over 2 days. Yeah, right. And then you had to create your packaging. And this is back in CDs. Okay, you had to send out like a press, what they would call a press kit, like musicians used to do back in the day. I knew this digital print company, and I'm like, listen, I designed my logo, which is still my logo. And I went against sort of the grain. The guy's like, listen, whatever you do, the voice actor's like, don't do like a microphone. And
they say to veer away from those things because they're so overused. But did you use a microphone?
But I used like a microphone, but like with a different twist to it, and a color scheme was red, white, and blue, kind of like all American.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and I just like the colors
also
in
like
general.
All American Dream.
Right, and then you had to come up with a phrase for yourself. Like that back in the day, that's what they wanted. Mine was a voice that shines.
Oh
okay?
my gosh, I love it.
And it was like
it's still
my
your
CD
thing.
packaging was like kind of like glimmered a little bit. You know what I mean? So I was excited. I was all excited about it.
A voice that shines.
Right.
I mean, it does.
Yeah, and then they
clear.
actually pressed it onto the CDs themselves.
So
the
you're
color.
mailing these out, physically mailing them.
So I had a cover letter that I got like really nice paper, like you would put really good resume paper on. I had my logo and everything, my phone number, my email address. I mean, I'm trying to think. That might have been like my first email address. You know what I mean? Because I didn't really use email.
Because, yeah, was email really a thing at that time? Were
People
cell phones
rarely
a thing?
used it. When I was 25, that was my first cell phone, too. My company gave it to me. I didn't get it. It was a flip phone. And
look, I'm buying equipment. I can't afford this razor at the moment.
I literally had a clip-on on my belt that was like 3 inches off my hip. I mean, it was ridiculous.
We would always joke how Kaylee and Johnny, my cousins, how Uncle Jamie would always get them like those, they would say brick phones.
Oh, they were like walkie-talkies.
Yes, and then he'd say, well, it's a phone's a phone. You're not going to get the new razor, the Sidekick.
Again, technology was
envisioning.
foreign to me, and I didn't realize I was sort of entering this technically savvy world. Because it wasn't there yet. It wasn't there yet, right? I'm speaking about voice acting. So I had to put together these kits. I had these envelopes made, these oversized envelopes. I'd have to pack them with bubble wrap because I'm sending a CD with a cover letter. And I mailed out, no joke, probably 1,500 CDs across the country.
And so you're doing
to talent agencies across the country.
And you're doing that physical packing.
Every day.
All of those things in there.
So what I would do is at night, I would
so
pack.
much time.
I would write my letters. I mean, I kind of had a cover letter, so I just had to insert the name in there, print it out, I would pack up 10 a night. And I would take it to the.
I
would bring them to work. Yeah, I was rocking and rolling.
You would do it at work. Were they okay with that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I would have to go see customers, so I mean, it would take me 15 minutes. I would just go and do it. You know,
you're multitasking.
Yeah, exactly.
Doing it all.
But I remember the post lady was just like, "Is this ever going to stop?" And I'm like, "Should I go to a different place?" I mean, but think about another
You're not
investment.
letting her deter your dreams.
So I had spent the $1,400 roughly on the training, probably another. To get the CDs produced and all that, maybe another $2,000, and then each packet that I mailed out was like $1.50.
Well, also time is money.
Oh, exactly. And you're not getting anything. So I remember I used to come home every night to my apartment and I'd look in the mailbox for letters because they would literally send you a letter from the talent agency saying we're interested. I mean, it wasn't even, they didn't email you even really.
So it was like snail mail.
It was like snail mail.
You had to wait for that letter.
And every night I'd be like, oh man, you know what I mean? Like, what am I doing?
Coming home and actually checking the mail.
Yeah. So
That's foreign to me.
Exactly. I'm trying to think.
At our senior year college house, our water got shut off because we weren't checking the mail. We were
to get the actual bill.
Exactly. We were assuming that
thought
everything was going
included
to be
or something.
We thought everything was going to be sent to us via email, and if we were going to get these past due notices, we assumed that we would get notified via text, via something.
Right.
Never in our minds would think mail. So then we checked the mail one day, and our water gets shut off, and we're like, "What is happening?" Go to check. We had about 20
past due notices.
So it's so true that we don't check the mail this day and age.
Right.
So the fact that every day you had to come home and that was your routine.
Which was exciting. So it was exciting and then it would be disappointing. And so it was this roller coaster.
Of just emotions back and forth.
Right. Then I'm doing my regular job, but I'm like preoccupied, you know what I mean?
And did you ever get that letter? What was that moment?
So I'm trying to think. So I think I'd sent all of them out. You know what I mean? I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing another run of CDs. Like, give it some time. You know what I mean?
Let's turn on Big Brother and let's just relax tonight.
At the time, what was the show I was watching? God, it's embarrassing to admit. I think I was watching Grey's Anatomy or something.
That's not embarrassing. It's still on today.
Oh, and The Hills. Remember MTV, that stuff?
Oh my!
I got into those. Yeah. So anyway,
you and I go on and on about shows.
Yeah. So I kind of took a little break. You know what I mean? I'm like, let the process.
Well, you
happen.
have to. You can't. Yeah. There's times where I want to edit and do all these things every day, but you have to shut your mind off sometimes and relax, or else you're gonna get totally burnt out.
So I'm trying to think. The first letter I got was from an agency in Milwaukee called Lori Lynn's, and they're like, "We're interested. We want you to come to an open house." And I was like, "This is awesome." But now I got to go to Milwaukee. You know what I mean? I don't have a car. I don't know how to rent a car. You know what I mean?
Now you're like,
I'm the age where I can actually rent one finally. I'm like, I think I'm like legal to rent one.
Yeah.
So I rented a car and I had to go up there on like
you could take the
train.
Night. Was it not that big of a thing? Was the Metro huge then?
I could have taken a train, but then I had to take a cab to like, I wasn't really sure. And this was back when like MapQuest was first out, so I MapQuested it on paper, like how to get there. And
my dad still prints out MapQuest for me when I go places. I say, "You realize I have an iPhone that can direct me everywhere?" And anytime we go places, he staples a MapQuested paper for me. Yeah. He's so old school.
He's old school. Even Uncle Jamie does the map on the phone, surprisingly.
So funny.
So I went up there. So let's say I'm 25 years old. I'm sitting in a room with all these people that I don't know.
What'd you wear that day?
Just regular clothes.
You were
because I was on the voice acting division, so they had actors and then voice actors. So I'm like, I knew I didn't need to be like presentable, but like I didn't wear a suit to like impress or anything. Do you know what I mean?
We're matching flannels today. I love that.
I mean, all kidding aside, I've recorded spots from my home here in underwear. They don't care what you look like. You know what I mean?
It's so funny because when you say that, we've listened probably on commercials and heard you and everything, and you could be very much in your bedroom wearing.
I was the voice
eating bonbons or whatever
of a college in like North Dakota, and finally this woman's like, "Can I just ask you a question? Like, what do you look like?" I'm like, I have a beard. I've never graduated from college. She just asked me, she's like, "Okay, I probably didn't need to know that," but I was like, "Yeah, you don't. Just know
what
that."
What do you look like? Because you weren't sending headshots at that point. It was strictly voice.
One of the rewarding things about voice acting, it gives people a chance who don't have the confidence sort of maybe in person to actually be confident behind the microphone. Do you know what I mean? And a lot of voice actors,
you're alone in a room. You
like
can
that.
be your personality. You can.
I mean, there's a couple people in a session if you're doing a studio session with someone, but it's not like overwhelming. We'll talk about like what sessions are like, but yeah, it gives a lot of people opportunity to be themselves and create something, which is cool.
And did you feel as though this career did allow you to be yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I was really excited. So I go to this orientation and they kind of tell us what they expect of you and stuff. And then they basically say, "All right, we're ready for you to sign a contract."
And when was this orientation? The one in Milwaukee?
Yeah. So this is my very first agency. Lori Lynn's, who I'm still with to this day.
That is so amazing. Yeah. So 14 years later, you're still with the same.
Still with them.
The first one, the first group that
I'm big
sent you that
on
letter.
loyalty, you know what I mean? So I was like, I've had the opportunity.
Oh, the Dohos.
Yeah.
Loyalty is for sure number one.
I've had the opportunity over the years to sign exclusive contracts with agencies, and I won't do it.
Because you just believe in where you started and having that respect and that loyalty.
Right. And one thing in Illinois.
They gave you that chance.
In Illinois, and I think in the Midwest in general, you can be multi-listed with agencies, which means non-exclusive. Whereas in LA and other places, they're more about exclusivity. But yeah, so I got the letter from them. I signed a contract. They're like, "We're going to sign you for a year." Now, what that means is you abide to their terms, meaning they get 20% of any job you book. That's what it means. They're not paying you anything.
Okay.
They're saying we're going to give you the opportunities via the auditions for clients that you would
And
never.
show us what you can do, and we're
Right.
going to get a cut of that.
We get 20% of whatever you book.
So you're still working as hard as you would as independent, in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, the only
They're
thing
just providing those
they're providing
opportunities.
you the opportunities. So then now I'm like, okay, great, I have an agent, and they're like, we recommend that you get more agents because some agencies have relationships with clients, we don't. You know what I mean? So I'm like, all right, well, I sent out 2,500 CDs. you guys signed me. Let's fingers crossed. I didn't say that to them, but I was like,
Oh my gosh.
and I remember I was so excited. I was driving home. It was like 10 o'clock at night. On a weeknight.
In your rent-a-car.
In a rent-a-car, which I was like, was it worth it? You know what I mean?
Well, good thing you drove away. Imagine if you went there and they were like, never mind, dude. And
Yeah,
then
thanks
you
for
had
coming up.
And then you had to drive home in your rent-a-car just sad
with the
from
150
Milwaukee.
bucks I didn't have. I'm like, yeah, right. And then lie about it at work the next day. Like, what amazing.
That is so funny. Did you ever feel like you had to lie in a sense? Like, were there ever situations where an audition didn't go well and you didn't want to tell someone that?
No.
I feel like you're just not like that. You're open.
One thing you learn right away is it's not rejection. It's just, this one guy put it to me, a producer. He's like, you're not their color purple that day. You know what I mean?
I love that.
Meaning, everyone that's getting an audition, they knows what's going on. You just didn't deliver what they had envisioned.
Well, it's like in just other forms of acting.
Right.
I'm sure there's big actors like Leonardo DiCaprio who may have not gotten a role in a specific film just because he wasn't the right actor for that role.
And that's another thing that comes into play. You need to know as you move forward in the industry, I don't audition for every audition my agency send me. I'm not right for that. You know what I mean?
And you know that.
Yeah. So I'm not going to
So
deliver.
you make that decision before.
They say don't deliver a read you're not comfortable delivering because it's going to sound like you weren't comfortable doing it, and it's not what they want. They send you sort of specs what they think you're good for, but you need to make that decision.
And in that sense, also knowing your worth and what you're capable of and your ability.
Why would you waste? First of all, I'm not going to take 15 minutes out of my day to do it. I'm not going to force someone to listen that's listened to 500 auditions to listen to it. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
And you don't want to get a bad name.
That's how the industry
If
works.
you start submitting bad auditions, people are going to remember your name. They're just going to be like, they're not even going to listen to it.
Wow, I never thought about it like that. I always figured you would just take every opportunity and go with it, but it is important to kind of categorize yourself and what you can deliver.
Yeah. In the beginning, I kind of went for a lot of stuff, but that helped in letting me know what I wasn't comfortable doing and wasn't able to do.
And do you remember certain ones that you just knew, maybe not specifically brands or commercials, but where you knew, okay, this is not my type of style?
A famous one was before Morgan Freeman started doing all these Visa commercials. They sent out a spec. They're like, we're looking for a Morgan Freeman type read.
Which is so funny because when they say we're looking for a Morgan Freeman type read, are you just kind of like
a month later,
hire Morgan Freeman?
he was doing it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And
His
I'm
voice
like,
is so distinct. You can't tell someone who's
but
auditioning be
I'm
Morgan
somewhat
Freeman.
in that range.
No, your voice is deeper.
So I thought about it, but I'm like, and then funny enough, he aired the commercial like a month later. I was like, they hired Morgan Freeman.
So you didn't audition for that.
I didn't audition for that.
No, but that's so interesting. And so when you signed with this agency, you at that point were you still working full time, or is this when you jumped off the ledge?
No.
And kinda went
right.
for it?
So now I'm getting auditions emailed to me. All right, so I have my email address. They're like, we are going to email you the auditions. Sometimes they would call me though too.
Good thing you had that cell phone.
Yeah, right. I'd be like, gee, But now
Is this ringing?
Yeah.
Is that how it works?
That was another thing too. I forgot. I bought a separate cell phone because I had to put a number on my card, my business card that I was mailing out. So
before it was your
but I
work
would
phone.
leave it at home like during the day and just I would check it at night. So that's another thing I would come home to and check if there were messages on it and stuff.
It seemed like your life, you're checking the mail, you're checking your phone. But that is the process when you're starting a new thing. You have to,
I was dating this
cross all your
woman
exes.
who was living with me, and she was like, is this going to go on every day? I'm like, yes.
Oh my gosh, I'm just picturing, so wait, your girlfriend at the time, she was living with you,
Yeah.
and so you're probably
I
coming
had
home
like
from
a
work,
routine. You
You're
know what I
sprinting to
mean?
the door, you throw your briefcase, you check your phone,
Yeah.
you check the mail. She
Yeah.
probably thought you were nuts at the
Yeah,
time.
absolutely. So I got signed by my second agency pretty close, maybe like a month or two apart from the first agency.
This is happening pretty quick, would you say, from when
It
you started?
was moving fast, which was good. Then I got a phone call from, at the time, the #1 agency in Chicago, Stewart Talent.
Wow.
And the lady, she left me a message. I'll never forget. I was going to a bachelor party, and I was literally...
Oh, God, you're ready for a night.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about it. I was like, God, I'm going to have a great time. We were going to New Orleans. Probably a little scared on top of it. I don't know.
Bourbon Street.
Right.
It's quite a sight.
And the funny thing about my cell phone, my work cell phone now, it really wouldn't ring. You know what I mean? So, like, when it did ring, I'd be like, oh, my God.
Did you answer the
And
phone
I didn't
at a
know
bar?
that. I didn't know. No. I was at the airport. And we weren't
good.
in.
Okay, I was about
we were
to- I
like
thought this
walking
turned
in.
into a horror story
We were
real
walking
quick.
in. No. And you don't know the numbers back then, right? So I'm like, hello. And she's like, oh, I'm looking for
No
Kevin
caller
Doherty.
ID.
Yeah, right. She's like, this is funny enough. Her name was Sheila Doherty, the talent agent.
But was it spelled
She
the same way?
spelled it Douagh.
I was going to say, we never find it spelled the same way.
Yeah. She's like, hey, this is Sheila. Now, I knew who she was. I knew who Stuart was Stuart Talent. I'm like, okay.
Well, so you did your research, so that's great that you knew.
Yeah. They were like a long shot.
The top dogs.
Yeah. Because their roster was just packed with guys that have done national ads for years. She says to me, she's like, listen, I listened to your demo. I'm going to be totally honest with you. You sound a lot like a lot of guys we already had that are booking work, but it stood out enough for me to call you. We want you to come in and do some auditions for us in person. And I go,
Wow. Is that different when you do in person?
right. She goes, we want to make sure. And she told me later why she did it. She didn't actually like the person that I studied with. They had like a history. And
Oh
she
my
didn't
gosh.
like some of the productions that he had produced for some other people. So he had a bad taste in her mouth. And she goes, so that's why I wanted you to come in here personally and read for us. I said, okay, great. So
Did you know at the time
they had
that
a
they
little
had bad
booth.
blood?
She told me when I got there, and she wasn't holding it against me. She's just like, I'm just letting you know, I very rarely sign talent that get anything produced by this person's studio, and I'm just like,
Well, that's a testament to you and your voice and your ability
Right.
that she still took you on.
so she's like, yeah. So she came in, I did the reads. They had a little studio. Now, back then, talent agencies would have a little recording booth. Not many places had recording booths, so sometimes you have to go to the talent agency to actually record the audition.
Is that scary? Do you get nervous?
In the beginning, a little bit. You know what I mean? So, and this is for now, it's her and the other two talent agents, like their whole division. So they gave me a bunch of scripts, and I'm in the booth, and they're like, all right, read it this way, read it that way, and I do it. And then she sits me down, and she goes, here's the deal. I'm going to give you a 90-day trial period. You're not signed with us, but if you book work with us, I'll sign you.
And was that a typical thing that they would do? Or was it more so she wanted to light a fire under you?
She goes, you sound a lot like people we have, like I said, so I'm not going to sign you, but I do think you can get work. If you book something, I'll sign you. We'll start sending you auditions right away. So they would call me. They wouldn't email me auditions, and I'd have to go there and audition all the time. So like,
that was
I'd be
different
at
for you.
work, and they'd call me, and I'd like race over there.
How did you manage to do that?
I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off. You know what I mean?
That's how it is in the beginning.
Yeah, so I'd take a cab over there. I mean, it was downtown, so I didn't have to go far. But sometimes I'd be out like...
Did you ever run into situations, though, where you'd be with a client?
Well, the cool thing is if you can't do the audition, they don't care. They're like, all right, that's fine.
It just benefits you, so if you miss it, that's on you.
Well, yeah,
it doesn't
right,
hurt them
exactly.
in any way.
Exactly. So, like, they'll tell you, they're like, if you can't do an audition, just don't do the audition. You don't got to call us. Do you know what I mean? And be like, tell us why you can't do it. So anyway, they were cool about it. But I did as many as I could because I wanted to...
You want to get exposure.
Yeah, and I'll never forget. I did this one audition, and I came really close. It was for, like, a court TV thing. It was going to be like a show. Like, I was going to narrate the show.
Oh, wow.
Like a creepy murder thing.
Fascinated by that.
And I did this really great audition. The lady that was recording it, she's like, that was awesome. And I was like, all right.
You go, I know.
I mean, I was like, okay, I've been doing this now for 60 days with you guys. I'm tired of saying it's awesome.
Yes.
They called me later that week. They go, you're number 2, but the guy in front of you was like, he was like a really well-known voice actor, and like they had worked with him, the court TV at the time. So I'm just letting you know, they're going to make their final decisions. And sure enough, they went with the tried and true guy. But
come on, the All-American, the voices that shine.
right. I mean, what you don't realize is you don't get a lot of feedback. So it's good to get, you know what I mean? If you don't get the part, you just don't get the part. You never find out how close you are to number 1.
So that was a cool moment for you.
Yeah, that was a cool moment. So anyway, the 90-day trial period went. She's like, listen, she's like, get some jobs under your belt, get a new demo, and come back to me. So I got it. But I got signed with another agency, who I'm still with, DeSanti Talent.
It would have been almost too good if she signed you. Like, your beginning of your story would have been just knockout after knockout after knockout.
Right.
You have to also go through those moments where, and you mentioned it's not necessarily rejection.
Yeah.
But it is those moments where, okay, I need to find what's going to work for me in other places.
She was just strictly business. That's what they were. You know what I mean? I mean, they're
honesty
in the
is so
business to
important.
make money, right? So
You are too.
yeah, I'm in the business to make money too. So it doesn't matter how much they like you as a person, right? Can you deliver?
It's hard though, because it's hard for me, because when I really like someone, it's hard to differentiate the two.
Yeah.
But you have to.
So, and then I got my first job shortly after that. I think it was a narration for like a medical product, and it was through Lori Lynn's. So I felt great about it. But I was like, oh, I'm really doing this. I just got paid to be a voice actor. Like, that's all I thought about on the way home.
So
like, I'm a
cool.
professional. So now it's probably around 2007. So I think I've been doing it part-time for about a year with work. I got picked up by 2 agencies, then a third agency in Texas called me within that first year. They signed me as well.
That's a pretty good first year, I'd say.
Yeah. So I got 3 agencies in the first year. And I booked, once
Very
I got
exciting.
that first job, I booked probably a good amount of jobs in that first year.
Were you getting paid enough where you felt, okay, maybe I could quit my full-time job?
No, but the sort of time commitment was getting to the point where I had to. If I really
At that point, it wasn't necessarily about monetizing. It was more so I can't
it
take my
wasn't a
time.
hobby. Am I doing this or am I not doing it? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Let's call it 2008. I think
You're
I
jumping off the
finally
ledge. I mean,
left.
you're
Yeah.
really taking this
Yeah.
and going with it.
You know, I was nervous, but I'm like, I'm either going to do this or I'm not. But it was also like invigorating. Like I had a different walk in my step. You know what I mean? I'm like,
You're doing something that
I'm
wasn't
doing
necessarily
this.
planned for you as well.
right. And like
you're going off the path.
in
You're
my
being
social
unconventional.
circle, my friends were like, a lot of people were like, dude, this is like pretty inspiring that you're doing this. You know what I mean?
Well, because I think that's what's so interesting about your story and why I'm so captivated by it is that you went off that path that, like we talked about earlier, your brothers or, sales, your dad was sales. It was kind of that path where maybe you thought you should take and you did it for a little bit, liked it, enjoyed it, were great at it. I mean, it's that personality that shines through,
Right.
not just the voice. But the fact that you took that leap and went for something that you're passionate about, I think just says a lot about you and also your work ethic. And it's just inspiring for those like me doing this and just seeing that, your dream can come true.
And it was unconventional. I appreciate you saying that. I mean, I didn't have a college degree. I kind of was like, you know what, if this doesn't work out, I would have to rely on some people I knew to get me into another sales position. A lot of people get in this industry and they think I'm going to be a millionaire. For instance, this one guy that I was training, he's like, well, how did you get these production names? I'm like, I literally spent thousands of hours finding these people, contacting them, developing a relationship. And he's like, well, I don't want to do that. I'm like, you don't have to, but
One thing is you have to enjoy the process.
Yeah. You can't bitch about why you don't get work.
We talked about some voice actors like Tim Allen. Are there any that you want to emulate, or when you first started you wanted to emulate or you idolized?
It's really kind
Was
of
Howard Stern your go-to?
It's kind of not like that. The industry isn't kind of like that. It's not like screen actors. You can be appreciative of what people do, but everyone's like, what do you bring to it? Like, what's your personal stamp on it? Do you know
You
what
have
I
to be
mean?
different to succeed in the industry.
Because
in
we're
a
all
way.
doing the same thing, right? That was air quotes for these that are listening.
Yes, they can't see us.
Exactly, right. But I can't say that I emulated people. I mean, obviously there's people that talk at like presentations and stuff and you're like, yeah, they've done a ton of work. You know what I mean? But I'd rather hear their work. You know
Oh,
what I
for
mean?
sure. For me, I love Dax Shepard. I love Howard Stern.
Yeah.
Mark Maron, which you said that you met Mark Maron, which I was so stunned by. Explain, what was that encounter like? Because I think he's hilarious.
Yeah, so a couple years ago I started doing background extra work as another creative outlet too. There's actually more of a story. I sort of took a break from voice acting a couple years ago, a forced break actually, because I got acid reflux really bad, and it really messed up my voice. I mean, I was having horrific coughing attacks, and I couldn't work.
I remember that.
Yeah. So I mean, I went to specialists, and my clients were like, "I can't work with you."
And that's what's hard too, because that
It was
is your
crushing.
work.
It was crushing.
Your voice is your service.
Right. It was definitely crushing. But I'm on the mend from it, and I'm so I kind of had to like build back up a little bit, some of my clients were like, listen, get back to me when your voice gets better. And some of them have moved on, and that's just stuff you got to deal with, right? So anyway, I started doing this background on-camera work for all the shows that are shot here. And Mark Maron was on a show called Easy. Now, I'm a big Mark Maron fan myself from his stand-up comedy. I know you have podcasts that you like.
Yeah, the WTF podcast, but I also have watched his stand-up comedy, which I know he prides on his comedy.
Yeah. I mean, so he's a great actor, too. I mean, he does drama and stuff,
he's
too.
in, is it Glow now? I haven't seen it on Netflix.
I was just watching it.
Okay, how do you like it?
It's hysterical.
All right, I need to
Now,
get
that's a
into
more
it.
comedic role for him, but this Easy stuff was sort of comedy, but drama comedy. So, I mean, he's got some range. Anyway, we were changing in the basement of this church, and he was like in the bathroom with us changing. He's like, you guys don't mind if I change? We're like, no.
I love that. A regular person,
Yeah.
it makes you realize.
Totally regular. Because like all the stalls were full, and I was like waiting, and he's like, I'm just going to change here. I was like, me too, dude.
Like, if Mark Maron does it, I'm going to do it too, I guess.
And then he was talking with us. We're like, there was 4 or 5 of us in the bathroom. He's like, hey, thanks for coming out to this production, guys. We really appreciate it. And he was just a very down-to-earth, funny guy.
Well, you love to hear that too, because I'm sure there are certain people in the industry that you might watch, and then you meet them in person, you see them in their everyday life. They're everyday people, they're just like us. But then there's some that may rub you the wrong way.
Everything in life, when you come across people, I mean, we're talking about, actors because of the stuff that I've been doing, but I've definitely been disappointed for sure. But you just take it and you move on. You know what I mean?
You always think too, maybe they had a bad day.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be different. But then we start to work with them a lot, and you notice it.
I've experienced it in voiceover sessions. Sometimes the ad person is not having a good day, and they're pissed, and it's coming across. And you got to be professional and just be like, okay, how can I make this easier for you? That's the mindset I come from.
Well, that's a great mindset.
How can I make this session go smoother for you? You're obviously having a bad day. Let me do my job, and let's just knock this out and have some fun.
You're like, get that sourpuss look off your face.
So I can put some people at ease.
So I can have fun here.
Yeah, but you never know what's going on in their mind. You know what I mean? So
No, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great way to look at it, because I'm sure that not everyone would look at it that way.
And speaking of on-screen actors, I've seen that happen in real life on sets. One of the actors is off, having trouble with their lines, having a bad day. The other actor's there to support them and help them out. And this is new for me, too, experiencing set life and meeting actors, or being around actors at least.
Because you started in January 2017, so this will now be your third full season.
It's like third season of the shows, basically, right?
And so basically you are, because we're based in Chicago, so you basically are extras, on camera.
Anything that's filmed here, whether it's a movie, sometimes commercials too, I've done, but the main show is like Chicago Fire. But a lot of shows are on Netflix too that film here, so there's more opportunities too. But
And I remember too, when you were on Empire,
Yeah.
you were in the boardroom, that scene. I mean, that was a long,
it was a couple years ago.
that was a long scene too, though, wasn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
they were in the boardroom, you were sitting there with,
Taraji P. Henson.
yes.
And I
And then,
think- yeah.
wait, who was the other actor? He was in Crash as well. He's huge.
Oh, Terrence Howard.
Yes, Terrence Howard.
Yeah.
So you met him.
Lucius Lyon. I call him Luscious.
I don't know if I know that reference. What's that one from?
That's his name on the show.
Okay.
Lucius Lyon.
So that just shows that I watched the scene with you, but I wasn't a loyal
I've never
Empire
watched
fan.
the show. Yeah, right.
That's what I wanted to ask you too. Do you watch these shows? Do you wait to see yourself on screen, or is that not something that interests you as much?
Some people do. So let's talk about sort of this background extras in general.
Yes, I
okay?
mean it's
a
really
community.
interesting.
It's like a community.
People for their lives, for their jobs, they're
Ricky
extras.
Gervais made a movie or a TV show called Extras. But it's
And it
like
was
in
about
England, being an extra. But it's all the same stuff that I experienced during the thing. So you meet a lot of just different people. There's retired people. There's people that are going to college. People that are actors that are doing this on the side. I mean, there's just a whole hodgepodge, right? Which is cool in itself, right? I could be talking to an 80-year-old guy, on my right, and a 30-year-old woman on my left. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And all the funny stuff that goes on. But the set life is its own culture, and sometimes you're not treated very well.
They treat extras as quote unquote
You
extras.
are extras. Like,
Yes.
oh, those are just the extras.
That's what they refer to you as.
Pretty much.
Wow. Due to enjoy like the food that's on
But
set.
you can't just like let that get you. That's just what it is. Do you know what I mean? It's not like they're punishing you or anything, but yeah. You are the lowest man on the totem pole.
They make you feel that way.
Yeah, pretty much.
That is so interesting. And so you said that you don't really watch the shows, right?
Yeah, so if I think I'm going to be on it, I might record it, but like they edit, most of the time they're either going to blur your face or cut you out. I mean, that's just it. It's like last night I worked on the show Fargo, and I was in 1950s Kansas cop. I had to go in for a costume fitting. I mean, those are specialty things.
Well, did you dress in the fireman gear for Chicago Fire?
I did that for 3 days.
And wasn't that a lot of work?
Oh my God. They had to pay us more money. So like,
that's heavy equipment.
yeah, I had to put on this fire suit. I probably lost like 20 pounds.
Just from like sweating it out?
It was summer. It was in the suit. It was like 115 degrees.
Oh my gosh, Chicago summer. I can't imagine. If only they could have done it maybe in winter.
Yeah.
Come on.
But the cool thing was we had a lot of downtime where we were outside and people thought we were real. So they were taking pictures with us and stuff.
You would, right?
Yeah.
You
I'd
pretended.
Be like, yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to like trash their dream. They were, I looked like a real firefighter.
Well, imagine if they...
I mean, I had my gear off, so I had like just the suspenders on, a shirt, and like my shades. I looked like a firefighter.
My shades.
Yeah.
Why don't you say shades? They're sunglasses.
I was, for 3 days, a firefighter in my mind.
It's added to your resume. You worked for Chicago Fire, Chicago PD. No, but it's so funny too because imagine though if you did tell that person, oh, actually no, I'm not a firefighter.
Like my one
I'm
buddy
an extra."
started to, and I go, dude, stop that right now. We are firefighters. Because I'm not going to listen to
Own
this.
your role.
Because I've told people what extra life is really like, and like, because I'm like, oh, I'm working on the show Empire, and their eyes light up, and then when you tell them, they're like, oh.
That's what you did.
It's like a disappointing, like, slash sadness, slash.
Like, this is what you
is
did.
Is this your life? You know what I mean?
That is so funny.
Yeah.
But what you talked about, too, is how people, you could get cut out.
Yeah.
You don't want to sit around and just wait and wait and wait and not see yourself on
I'll
screen.
tell you a wonderful story. I met this woman on Chicago PD. She was a huge fan of Chicago PD. Like, that's why she was doing it. And I'm like, okay, great.
So she was an extra as well.
She was just doing it like she just wanted to do it because I think Sophia Bush, the main actress, was on that day.
Did you ever see Sophia Bush?
Yeah, a bunch of times.
Wow.
We were sort of heavily featured, like, because she was walking into this like office space ready to like interrogate somebody or like talk to someone, and we were like walking right by her, so they couldn't really blur us out. But I mean. So anyway, this woman's all excited all day. And she's like, oh my God, I'm having a watching party for this episode. And I'm like,
did you have to kind of sit her down?
I go, listen, I just be very careful about it. Well, sure enough, she had all her girlfriends over. And like, it was like her right butt that they like kept in the thing. I was totally out. You know what I mean?
So at least she had a moment.
Yeah, but she was like, oh my God, it was like the most embarrassing thing. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I told you.
That reminds me of this whole story as you're talking. I mean, I'm a huge Friends fan.
Yeah.
The fact that it's taken off Netflix has just ruined my life. I mean,
I'm trying to think if I've seen any of the Friends people on anything. I don't think I have. I've never been around.
Oh my gosh, if you did, I would have been so upset if you never told me because I would have made sure to have been there that
Yeah.
day. But Joey being an actor and his trials and tribulations, and when he had everyone over to watch him in his first movie or this show, and then his grandma was
Is
there.
this a real story he was telling?
No, this
was
like,
a Friends episode?
Yeah, Friends
Oh,
episode.
yeah.
So Matt LeBlanc's character.
Oh, he was an
Joey.
actor. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was his career. And his grandma's there, and everyone's watching. And then Joey goes, okay, now, because he knew the part.
Yeah.
And then it just cuts something else.
Yeah.
And everyone's sitting there, and Chandler's just like, dude.
That's real life. That
Yes,
happens.
and so then they had to make up this whole elaborate story for his grandma. But it really does happen. I'm sure they were going off of a true life story that maybe one of them went through.
I'm sure there's a lot of editors on these shows that when they see my mug on, they're like, we got to get this guy out of here. They've seen me enough. We joke about it on Empire because I wore the same sweater all the time. Like, oh, sweater guy's back.
They say that?
Yeah, sweater guy's here. You know what I mean?
You're like, no, it's Kevin J. Doherty. You know my stage name. Come
I'm
on
like,
now.
I'll be sweater guy. You know, they'll talk to you like that. And so the first background job I ever did was Chicago Justice, which is no longer on the air. Okay. And I was wearing
You've
my
done them
sweater.
all.
I
It's
was wearing
wild.
my sweater, and this guy's like, all right, where's sweater guy? Where's sweater guy? Like, that's what he knew me as all day. And he just
Oh
kept
my
putting me in the
gosh.
scenes. He's like, where's my sweater guy? You know what I mean? And I'd be like, dude, my name's Kevin. He's like, I don't care what your name is. You know
My
what I mean?
name's Kevin.
Yeah. So that was my very first. There's a whole protocol on set. You get there and you see wardrobe first. So they're going to look at your clothes that you brought.
Do they put makeup on you?
Sometimes. I had makeup on yesterday.
Do you just allow it? It's just, it comes
It's
with
not
it
really
comes with the
full
role.
makeup. They call it anti-shine because if you're going to be sweating, that's why you never really see actors sweat. They put stuff on you that basically it's called anti-shine. So if you are sweating it, the camera doesn't pick it up.
Wow. Because
So I was gonna
that'll
be-
be a glare.
Yeah, correct. So, but I've had makeup put on me quite a number of times. I don't really like it, but yeah, you can't say no. Like they'll be like, all right, come over here. And I'm like, all right. I
If you
keep my
say
hair
no,
really
they
short.
remind you that you're an extra.
Yeah, they're like, come over here.
Sweater guy, you're doing it.
Yeah, right. So I have short hair, and I'm usually clean shaven, so I'm usually pretty good about that. But you go through wardrobe, they get you whatever you're going to be wearing that day. Then you're in a holding area. Now, at the studios, they have their own cafeterias and spaces, which are nice.
And is the food good?
Yeah, food's good, usually. And that's the whole
Are you going for seconds?
No, you don't get seconds. Oh, and then this is kind of embarrassing to admit. You have to wait till the crew eats first.
This is embarrassing to admit.
So I was telling my buddy I was on vacation in Louisville, and I was walking. We were having beers. I was walking through my day, and he's like, he listened to the whole story, and he's just like, that sounds really depressing. I approach it like I approach voice acting. I take it serious.
You need me.
I take it seriously.
You need to tell them that.
Yeah, right. I've been working long enough to where I know some of the PAs and stuff. So like I'll tell you.
Well, they know you.
That
clearly.
Chicago Fire episode, we were doing this one thing where we were driving. We had to do this big loop around the actual loop to get into the scene, right? But it was all the firefighter, all the real actors were on the first fire truck, and I was on the second fire truck, and it was like a Saturday. And people in these hotels, we were coming down Wacker Avenue, were like taking pictures and waving. So then I stuck my head out, and I was like, you know what I mean?
Give it a thumbs
people
up.
People were like, who is that guy? And they could tell, but there were PAs stationed all the blocks, and they were just sitting there like, you son of a bitch.
You're going to do this.
And later they came up to me, they're like, first of all, that was hysterical. Don't ever do that again. You know what I mean?
Well, again, you're hilarious. I'm sure you've met people, made friends with people who just think you're funny and love to be around you.
When we're on set, people are like, we just laugh. You got to laugh about it.
You have to have fun. I mean, it's like you said, it's your side job. So why not have fun with it and not take it seriously, but also have fun with yourself.
Exactly. My experience has been on sets that a lot of the actors are very cool. You know what I mean? Like if they're in a room with you, like when we did that boardroom scene in between takes, they'll talk to you. If they're doing a very serious scene like Chris Rock last night, or a dramatic scene that was a long dialogue, it was just a lot of lines, they're not going to be talking to people.
Yeah, you met Chris Rock last night. Yeah. You're telling me that.
I mean, met him. He basically said, "Hey, how's it going?" But because we were like 2 feet away, but he was having trouble with the scene, and he just was not in a mood. You know what I mean? He wasn't there to be dicking around and like.
He wasn't doing his stand-up.
He wasn't cracking jokes to people. It was a very serious scene, and he was trying to figure it out. You know what I mean?
Which happens. I mean, and that's
he was
so
hired to do a job, like I was hired to do a job. His job is much more important to the project than mine.
Well, don't undercut yourself, but definitely, I mean, he might be one of the star roles.
Right. Yeah. And then
you're over here like, we're both hired, dude. We're both here today. Yeah. Come on,
let's make this work. You know what I mean? He'd be like, who the hell are you? You know what I mean?
And
then once again, that would be the thing. He's just one of the extras. You know what I mean? Like that would be.
That would have been so funny too. If while Chris Rock was like going through his dialogue,
I go give him like a butt pop or something. Like, hey man, come on, you'll get this. You know, he'd be like,
you're mouthing his lines like because you memorized it beforehand. You're like, he's like, what's this dude? You're like, hey, I know the next line.
Now listen, there's something called overacting that background extras do, and that's an easy way to get cut out of the scene. But some people. It's called mime. They call it pantomiming. So you're having a conversation. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well, they can't see us again,
right.
but
exactly.
Just
so I just did
things.
it. Yeah, right. Now, some people, when they do that, it's really, it's frustrating. They try and have a real conversation with you, and you're like, you know what I mean? And they'll be like, what?
Oh, I see.
Like if you're in a cafe, you're trying to have a conversation, right? Because like the actors are there. They just want to see your mouth moving.
Yes.
And there is, you're just saying stupids. You're just not even saying anything. Apples and oranges. There's all these weird things.
Oh, so you can just, so you're not actually in full conversation.
Some people try to though, and they'll be like, what? You know what I mean? And then like, so sometimes.
So you have some tryhards.
So sometimes they'll come over and be like, way too much action going on over here. What's going on? Or like the pointers will be like, you know what I mean? Like you're not.
You're distracting what is actually
what they're trying to convey. You're a part of the project, but you're not supposed to be. It's all supposed to be very subtle. It's a very important thing to do, I think, to understand how sets work and all that. I mean, there are people that are legitimate taking acting classes, and they're going on auditions, and they do background work.
Definitely.
It's a legitimate thing to do. Then there are some delusional people that think they can get like a backdoor way into the business. It's been fun, some of your cousins like Colette and them watch Chicago Fire and stuff, so hopefully maybe I get a speaking role on there, and they'll Colette said something funny to me. She's like, well, are you ever going to have speaking lines? And I'm like... Speaking
lines? Are you going to actually be a part of this?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Emmett's like, I don't think I'm watching it tonight. I don't think you're going to be on it. I was like, probably not.
You have your own nieces and nephews just calling you out.
Yeah.
So funny. Well, I think it's so interesting how we went into voice acting, then the on-camera set work is... Yeah. So wild. I mean, I did not even think of all those hilarious. I knew there would be some hilarious stories that would come into play.
Oh yeah, it keeps you entertained for sure.
But going forward, what advice do you have for young aspiring voice actors? And You've been doing it now for 14 years. Has it felt like 14 years?
No.
Has it just flown by?
Yeah. Now that I actually think about it. Because
Right,
when
when
you're
you
in the
sit
day-to-day stuff, you're like, yeah, it's like anything.
It's
like,
tedious,
this is what I
taking
do,
time.
right? You know what I mean? Here's my advice.
Here we go. TED Talk it up.
Yeah, right. TED
The
Talks.
kid is giving his advice, you guys.
You got to be passionate about it. You can't let your emotions get involved because you're going to go through dry spells. You're going to go through weeks where you feel like, why am I doing all these auditions? No one likes me. You're going to have all those ranges of emotions. You need to stay focused. You need to stay hungry. You always have to be learning.
Hungry is such a great way to put it.
Yeah. You always have to want to be sort of not the best at what you do. I'm not going to say that, but like the best in that moment of every script you're reading. So you have to stay focused. You have to stay hungry. Reach out to people. Do your research. Reach out to established voice actors.
Just like you did in the beginning.
It can't hurt. No, sometimes someone will say, I don't have time to help you out, but 9 times out of 10 they will, or point you in a direction where people can help you out. And moving forward, I'd like to do more training because I want to give back, and B, it's something, you can do on the side while you're doing voice acting and things. I'm not going to be able to use my voice probably forever, but hopefully I can.
That was a dark thought.
Yeah, right. I relate to people on a level that makes them feel a little more comfortable. You know what I mean? So like,
oh, for sure.
They're not so rigid when they're reading a script. I'm like, dude, just come on, loosen up. Like, it's not that big a deal, right?
You're very relatable.
Yeah.
In that regard.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, one of the guys that I was training with, he's like, when I'm reading like a beer script, I'm envisioning you like being a guy that I would sit down and have a beer with, you know what I mean?
Which you guys probably have
That's
done.
what you do, yeah. I mean, we'll keep that for another episode.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's very competitive, but like anything else out there, everything's competitive, right? Just believe in yourself.
Wow. And with all of that, I mean, it's just cool that you're my uncle and that we have taken this time to go through. And I love you. I appreciate you taking the time because this is so interesting.
This has been really fascinating. I'm thrilled that you're doing this. I'm honored that you thought about me. And
I mean, come on, the kid, how could I not?
This is a conversation that you and I just normally wouldn't have. Not that we don't care about each other to engage in that.
I don't care about what you're doing. I don't want to talk about it.
But,
I agree.
we have our own little thing, so this is really cool. And, to be inspiring to people is always a good thing. And I can see that, I know you inspire people as well.
Oh,
but
thank you.
That you want to learn, and I'm excited to listen. Not just to, I actually listen to our podcast.
Yeah, so
not right.
don't tune this one out.
But I'm excited to listen to some of the others as well and hear other people's stories.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that because all these stories fascinate me and yours being top of those. So
Just real quickly, know that I'm not going to help you out.
That was what I thought I was here to do. After we're gonna have dinner and go through that editing process, just edit yours real quick.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that.
No,
I've got stuff.
It's busy. It's Saturday. We're about to go out. But already, I love you, Tender.
Thank you so much. Love you too.